of us have properties. Sometimes they're rentals, sometimes principal residence, recreational property, the whole gambit. And this is a big asset in your asset allocation. So we thought, wouldn't it be a nice idea? Oh, hi, Pat. Didn't see you there. Nice idea to do a presentation from one of our local top-notch realtors and get to the bottom of what's this asset class? How is it responding? Is it correlated to the stock market? What about diversification? All those fun questions. So we didn't have to look far. One of the members of my team is Thomas Neustadter, and our speaker today is Jeff Neustadter. So, gee, I wonder how we found him. So it's great. Great to have you. We thought we'd get probably 30 people, so we had our boardroom booked. When we exceeded 45, we went, uh-oh, it's going to be a little bit cozy, so we've upgraded you to the Palliser. So it's kind of like flying, you just got an upgrade. I love the Palliser. So I'd like to just introduce my team today. I think everyone knows my Mona, been with me 21 plus years, my right hand. I'm looking here, I see Peter and his mom. He brought his mom to work today. Peter, a new CFA, great to have him, part of my succession planning. Right in front of me is Chris Thurber. He has my background from Investors Group, so I know he's well educated, highly trained, and he is our insurance specialist. At the back on his phone is Thomas, who was dropped off at my place when we were working from my house during COVID. Thomas came through the door in a beautiful suit. His dad dropped him off, brought him to work, and my two Siamese kittens climbed up the front of him. So that was Thomas's introduction to the team. Thomas does almost all my trading, my analyticals, and he works very closely with you when you need money or you want to send us money. So he's part of my succession plan. It takes two guys to replace me and then some. So I want to thank the parents, Peter's mom, Jeff, for procreating. So I have a team. My cats just won't do it. So who am I missing? At the back, we have Eva, pretty new to us, and she keeps Peter in order. So it's a big girl job, and she's got a master's in finance. Smart as a whip. So you can see age-wise, I'm planning ahead for us. So when I'm 90 and still at work, and you're going, oh dear, we have a whole succession plan going on here. Beside her is Michaela, who is in my direct line of fire outside my office when I step out and holler. Not a good position to be in, but she is calm, she's lovely. She's booking all your appointments, following up, all that kind of stuff. Lovely to work with, and she puts up with me. Fairly new to us is Terry. Ooh, the master in administration. This gal moves paper accurately. You can move paper, but she does it accurately. Oh, thank God for Terry. And in the white jacket is our Pam, who joined us right around the time Chris joined us, and she is our chartered accountant. I don't know how a financial team runs without an accountant at their fingertips. I've been known in an appointment to holler, Pam, and in she comes, because isn't tax crucial? It's not what you make, it's what you get to keep. That's crucial. So that's our added value. Tall, gorgeous beside her is a clone of Mona and myself. We've made her taller, smart as a whip, beautiful, and younger. Yeah, so you can see Mona's succession planning. So there's our team. We left a few at the office to hold the fort, but most of us are here. So how is this presentation going to go? We're going to start with Thomas on asset allocation. That'll be pretty quick. Then we'll move into Jeff on properties. And Mona is bringing up the tail end, and this is, I reviewed the presentation a couple of days ago. This is any U.S. positions. This means a U.S. stock, means a U.S. property, it means anything to do with the U.S., and she's going to bring you up to date on substantial presence. I know we're not really traveling to the U.S. these days, but you need to be aware of the days you spend in the U.S. So Mona's going to tie it off. We're hoping to end by 1 o'clock, but we'll be hanging around. I'd like to talk a little bit, I think, if Michaela can verify this, we just put up financial literacy on our website. This is a 10-part financial education process. And it took us almost a year to film it with Steve and Marcus and his crew. It was a lot more work than I thought. It's the usual. Had you known how much money and how much time and how much work, you might not take it on. But we're done now. So we'll be sending out an email directing you to our website. Each presentation is 15 minutes or under, and we start with basic financial planning. And we end with Mona and I, which is a bit of a Mona and I on estate planning, and we couldn't get it under 28 minutes. We had a lot to say. So when you graduate and make your way through all these courses, we have a certificate of completion for you. So who's this suitable for? Somebody getting their first job and starting to save money, just want to know the basics of net worth, cash flow management. Someone that sits in the appointment with us and they're very quiet and they're going, I'm not following this, but I'm not going to say much. It's for that person also. Or if you say, I've done good planning, I thought, saved a lot, and I don't feel I'm where I should be. So it's good for anybody. And if you have kids that are getting their first job, or I'm going to say in my category, grandkids, then maybe join them. That could be a fun thing. So it was a work from our heart, and all different team members are featured. So the caveat is, we're not actors, we're not teachers, we just did the best we could from our hearts. So, price of admission. In your package is a review form. That's your price of admission. We want to hear back if you enjoyed this and any thoughts about other presentations. So, feedback to us. Okay, so I have the pleasure of introducing Jeff Newstetter today. With him today is his team, and Jeff was smart. On my left here is Emma. This is Jeff's daughter. Beside her is her husband, James. And we have Ray. Where is he? Ray, Jeff's brother. So I should have had a bigger family. Obvious, where I went wrong. So Jeff is an award-winning realtor. He's been around over 20 years, 23 years, and he's sold over 5,000 properties. Wow. Some of them hotels, multis, so every range. And the kind of funny story about Jeff and Thomas was when we got back to the office and clients started coming back in, Thomas recognized most of our clients from his dad selling their house or church. Thomas knew our entire client base, almost. Lots of commonalities. So it's really a pleasure to introduce Jeff, and I'll be making notes. So enjoy.
As Kathy mentioned, my role here today will be to set the stage for our conversation, which is optimal asset allocation. Each year, Stats Canada provides us with fascinating data on Canadians and our behaviors. In 2024, Stats Canada reported that 91% of wealth is held by homeowners. This confirms our understanding that homeownership remains on top for accumulation of wealth, as the mortgage is the best forced savings vehicle. Studies show that those who plan to rent and save the equivalent tend to save less. In Canada, 42% of household wealth is made up of the family home. Properly upsizing and then downsizing is an important part of life and your retirement. On the left, this is not official data. This is more so of a joke. We have our typical Calgary family client that comes into us, and this is their typical asset allocation they have, which they think is extremely well diversified. And for those in the back who can't see, it's made up of a family cabin in the Coonies, their Calgary home, and a well-diversified oil and gas stock portfolio, which is made up of upstream, downstream, and service companies. That is not, we do like to do things a little different, and we like to break that down once clients come over to us. On the right is an idea of what clients should have, and oftentimes Kathy says too that your home and your real estate is often affected by the price of oil and gas as well. The interior, and as you see with property values, vacation home values are often reflected in how Calgary is doing as a city. On the right too, we have your Calgary home has a larger proportion, but we have it broken down and diversified. What our job is to really optimize how people should be allocating their cash, and for a lot of our oil and gas clients to make them more diversified. This was an interesting slide. This is my last slide here, but this is showing the different real estate returns from the turn of the century. We have Vancouver and Toronto. On top, we have the Canadian Stock Exchange. This is just to highlight how proper asset allocation is essential. Before joining Kathy's team, I started off in Wood Gundy out in White Rock, so I got a good look into client portfolios and the lives of clients out in Vancouver and the Lower Mainland. One thing we found is that the average client on that book, it was a very similar makeup as what Kathy's book is here at Richardson, is that the average client had $2, for every $2 in their house, they had $1 in investable assets. Here in Calgary, we see that flip. For every $1 in their house, they have $2 in investable assets, as Calgary still remains a little cheaper. And obviously the returns have been phenomenal out in the Lower Mainland and out in Toronto. But we still have that Calgary advantage for having extra cash and still having relatively cheaper real estate prices. But that is the end of my bit. Next up, we have the real estate portion.
Okay, this is awesome. Great to see everyone here today. Appreciate the kind words. It's true, I have worked in real estate very hard for the last 25 years, but I'm definitely not a public speaker. And this is my first time. I've had my head down working and never done a presentation, much less at the Palliser Hotel. If I was thinking a more appropriate venue would be like the Travel Lodge in Brooks, Alberta or something, but we're here and very grateful. I'm very grateful for my brother who's been with me the last 20 years in real estate, one of my daughters, Emma, and her husband, James. It's what a blessing to have that, but why we're all connected here today is because of my son, Thomas, and his connection here with the team. And from a personal standpoint, wow, to have someone like Thomas, Kathy, Peter, and the whole team looking after our family finances, man, what a joy it is to feel like someone really cares about it. And that's the difference. We've been investing for a lot of years, but I've never had this. And when I moved here a few years ago when Thomas came, man, this is what a difference maker it's been for me. So thank you. So real estate, it's a very broad topic, so it's really difficult. We're going to try and touch on a few topics. I'll be around here afterwards for any more specific questions, but we wanted to, my background, like Kathy said, I've had over 5,000 transactions, and in that opportunity, I've got to see snapshots into a lot of people's lives, people younger, older, what they've done right and what they've done wrong. And I think I've garnered a whole lot of just anecdotal wisdom from seeing how people live their lives and what's worked, what hasn't. There's a lot of stuff that's available online, a lot of information, and I find a lot of it might have an angle or spin, so I'm just going to give you my honest opinion from what I've seen and just touch on a number of different topics. We've had heavy into construction. We've built 86 houses. We've had a family vacation house in Invermere, and we had a family vacation house in Arizona. We've had residential rental properties in Calgary. We've kind of done it all, and I've seen it all. So I'm just going to give you my opinion on different things, and we can go from there. For the main question that most people want to ask is kind of the market direction. but it's similar if I ask Peter where the TSX is going to be in next April. Well, it's really difficult to say, right? There's so many factors that are into it. We have lower oil prices now, and we have tariffs, but also interest rates just got lowered again this morning as well. So there's a lot of varying factors. In the near term, I think it's going to be, I jumped right over. I was supposed to bring my daughter in here to give us a little market update first. I'm just getting fired up here, guys. Sorry. So Emma's going to give us just a quick market update, and then we'll carry on here.
Perfect. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. So we're just going to give a quick overview of kind of what we've seen over the last few years. So over the last 5 years, Calgary has had significant growth, but not all housing segments have seen the same thing. So generally, we've seen about a 10% price increase in 2021, 2022, and then again in 2023. That was followed by about a 5% price increase in the first quarter of 2024. However, in the last 18 months, especially the last 6 months, we've seen prices begin to cool down and pull back as inventory has increased, and then as well as affordability continues to be a challenge for many. So my husband, James, and I, we actually purchased our first home this last year in the spring of 2025. This home was originally listed in fall 2024. Our team had evaluated it, thought the price to be around $800,000. They wanted to list at $850,000, so we went at $850,000. Fast forward 6 months later, we actually purchased the property for $750,000. So that just kind of goes to show you just an example of even in the single family housing market, that shift has also been seen in the last 18 months here. But again, not every housing market has experienced that. Condos have definitely seen the largest inventory gain, and the prices have actually come off more than 10% since that peak in 2024 that we saw. Townhomes also have experienced a similar cooling down in pricing, but not nearly as much as that condo market again. Production homes that are seen in the newer communities kind of on the edge of Calgary have also experienced, especially in the last 5 months here, pulling back in prices as inventory is slowly starting to reach that market segment as well. Oddly enough, it's kind of the higher end estate homes and the acreage properties that our team has seen have been able to hold their value the most. So, yeah.
Awesome. Sorry about that.
No.
Yeah, we've cooled off a little bit, but we were obviously, the market, it's just, we're at these highs, and it's definitely uncharted territory for Calgary, so it's pulled back a little bit, but this is going to be, we're almost at the bottom from what we see over the next 3, 4, 5 months. I think there's going to be a little bit more, this is kind of the last buying opportunity. I don't think the sky's falling. If we list a general house, say $800,000, and if it's priced at market, there's going to be anywhere from 8 to 15 people coming through to take a look at it. There's a lot of water behind the dam. There's a lot of buyers that have kind of been waiting for the last 6, 12, 18 months even, right? There's peaky, affordable issues, interest rates, and now people are going to start coming back into it. Not tomorrow. This is not the time to sell your house, but probably more so, I think it's going to be quite an active spring next 6 months from now. That's kind of my initial take on it. A lot of buyers, and we don't have an inventory problem nearly as significant as what we had in 2008. A lot of you guys have been around for a while and seen the ups and downs in Calgary real estate. Back in 2008, we had 11,000 active houses and condos on the market. And Calgary at that time was around 1 million people. Right now we're at close to 1.7, and our number is 6,200 active houses and condos. And a higher percentage of that is multi-level condos right now. There's been mass production of the multi-level condos, and those prices have pulled off. And typically, yeah, that's, so it's not a significant issue. And also on the single-family houses, especially that $1 million, $2 million, or acreage properties, that estate stuff, it's holding quite well right now, based on scarcity, based on building costs. But upsizing or downsizing, that was one of the topics that was brought up, and that's a really difficult one to address. It's highly personal. Like for upsizing, it's really based on your net worth and your income, and but it's more personal about what's important to you. If that large home is a bigger factor, for sure. Like from my personal standpoint, we've had some nicer houses, my family and I, and it's been very nice from a family standpoint. But maybe we've had maybe a little too much money into our houses, and we've recently pulled back and taken quite a bit of money off the table, invested it. And from my standpoint, I feel great. But if you talk to my wife, you might get another perspective. But in an overall sense of downsizing, it's very difficult, especially as people get into next segment of life. It's difficult, but from what we've seen anecdotally from our experience is that the people who do it a little earlier and go through their stuff, minimize, it's actually, they end up happier, and they're happier they get it done and accomplished than when it's really becomes more arduous. And that's where I've seen to make that next step. That's just from what we've seen over the years. So I love construction. We've built, I love design, finishing, decor. I love the smell of it. We've built 86 houses, and it was really a great part of our real estate business for a lot of years. But that was now coming back. It's almost 20 years ago when we did a lot of our construction. We're definitely doing less of it now. Back then, construction costs would be below what resale market costs were. You could buy a new home for less than what it was on the resale market, and it made sense from a financial investment. It's a little bit more of a luxury now to do it. If that's your dream, you want to buy a house and you want to have a beautiful house, brand new, you can do it, but you're paying a little bit of a premium for it now. So we're not doing a lot of new construction at this time, but it's still it's still wonderful from a personal standpoint. Rentals. This is another, this is on the slide too. I know there's some very, very smart people in this room, and a lot of people who have a couple rentals or a more extensive amount of properties. I've changed my perspective on this a little bit over the last little while. I was very, very much a strong proponent of having rental properties, and I'm just more balanced on it now. For me personally, we ended up, we've sold out all our things. I was tired of dealing with the maintenance of it and the hassle. And obviously, we've taken our money and put it in and invested it. And it's obviously a simplified thing. Some of the structured notes and different things that we can get here, the tax havens, the shelters, it's so much more simpler for me in that perspective. It's not saying that's what people should do, but it's good to diversify. And for me, it's worked out obviously very well going more this route. And rentals make sense if you feel the market's stable or increasing. And I think we're going to be in for, especially in the next 6 months, we're in for a more stable market. I'm not so sure it's going to be increasing much, but it's still a viable opportunity here in Calgary to buy and own property. But I'm just sharing where I'm at and what we're getting here, which is, Tom's didn't tell me to say that, by the way. That was just on me. In different market segments, if there's different things like a variety of type of houses to buy. I'm not as much a fan of condos. We have an example here. There's a young gentleman, moved here from Toronto. His parents wanted to help him out. This is 2012. Bought a condo in the Montana building right off 17th Ave. Beautiful building. It was newer at the time. They paid $475 for that. He lived here for a number of years, and they decided, well, we're just going to rent it out. And they rented out. He moved on to Vancouver. They rented out. They had issues, vacancies, a high condo fee. And after all that time, we sold it for them in 2023 for $470. So in a situation like that, they feel they've taken, with all the cost in, is about an $80,000 hit on a condo. And this is not just a one-off scenario. We feel that significantly about that. Condos are great if it's for your personal life. If that's what you want or that's what you need, that's fine. But it's not from the best investment segment from what I've seen. Sometimes houses on further in the suburbs too, like let's use like deep South Calgary, like Auburn Bay or Mahogany. If you're on the lake in Mahogany or Auburn Bay, that's a great spot, great place for life, and there's a scarcity of waterfront property. It's going to hold its value very well. But for other properties, they can keep stripping all that land to Brooks, and you're not going to have a strong lift. And we've seen that too. As houses go down and depreciate, their land doesn't really appreciate that much because there's so much more available. It's not like Toronto or Vancouver. We're in a different situation here. So the last topic I'm going to touch on is vacation properties. Like I mentioned earlier, we had I'm going to start off with a broad generality here, and then
Ask how many people have vacation properties. Put up your hand if you have a vacation property. That is not as many as I thought.
Mona's going to give us a different set of analytics. I'm just going to talk again from what we've seen personally. Like we had the place in Invermere, and it was wonderful from a family standpoint. But right now, you need to be confident. If you're going to buy a vacation property, you have to be confident that in a significant amount of personal or rental use. And if you're not guaranteed of that, then it might be better to consider renting. My wife just rented a house in Scottsdale for the month of November, coming right up. It's a beautiful spot, probably just over $1 million Canadian if we were to buy it. 4 bedrooms, west back, mountain view, pools. Now I think of that property, she just rented for the month, but if we were to buy that, what that cost would be for me with pool maintenance, scorpion control, property tax, maintenance, and everything else. So it's $1 million, but we're just going to rent it for what we're using it. And this is, again, Thomas, I was interested in buying, and he's set me down and gave me the facts. No, just pay for what you're going to use. We're renting that house for $10,000 for the month. So it's $330 a night. And we get guests, and it's going to be but we get a full month of vacation but it's only for $10,000. Even if we did it for multiple months, for 3 months, I still think it would be much more advantageous to do this with no cost rather than being out $1 million and the cost on that. So that's just my general thoughts on vacation. Be very hesitant before, and it's good that very few of you are in deep on it. But that's just my opinion. Again, happy to discuss more further. But with that, ask Mona if she'd come on by and.
We're going to open to questions.
Well, should we do it? Do you guys want to ask? Do you want to go? Any questions for me here? I know we touched a lot of topics. Go ahead.
In your experience, okay. What renovations make sense?
Definitely less is more, because you have to be be very, very careful not to do much. Because if your house is worth $800,000 and we put in $40,000, now we need to get $840 just to break even. If the carpet just tired, let's just say, then that's nothing to replace. But if it's stained and cut up and there's dog holes or something, okay, then that's something that you might need to do. But there's really need to be very careful. The biggest ones were paint. Paint is very inexpensive and you get really good value back on it. Obviously, appliances, and then flooring is kind of the third thing. Other than that, boy, you got to be really careful. Renovations are, like basement development, we find typically if you spend $100,000 on a basement development, you might get 50 or 60 of that back. And there's a lot of additions are another thing that's a really poor return on investment. Landscape is another poor return because you add that money up, and now it makes it, the higher the price goes, the less affordable it is for people. So that's a great question, but situation is unique, but again, it depends upon how bad the paint is, or if it's just a little tone off, then leave it. But just little things like that. Anything else? Oh, Kathy's got one.
Oh, yeah, I've got a couple. So Jeff and Emma and James are working really hard for me. The high density in Calgary, especially in Marda Loop, where I live. If you've driven through Marda Loop, you know exactly what I mean. And so they're looking in Elbow Valley, which is just outside the city limits, not part of Calgary, so not subject to high density. And the game changer was the ring road, because the ring road you can get everywhere quickly. And that is a really challenging market. I've made, 3 houses. Some have gone above asking. So that area, I can see why it's so heated. Are there any other areas in Calgary that you find are particularly attractive and you're seeing good movement there? Is downtown Central a little hotter than the suburbs? Like, what's grooving in Calgary?
It's odd, and again, this is the first time of 25 years of doing this, almost 25 years. The estate market, this is the first time, normally if you get a turn down or something slows down, it's the estate market that goes down the most significantly, and like a starter home stays the most solid. But right now, it's just the inverse of that. So whether it's in Altador, for instance, those, if it's a single family house or an attached, like that's fine, but the townhouses have pulled back a little bit more. But it's the oddest thing that this, because of replacement costs for a new construction in, like for an Elbow Valley, for a Bear's Paw, or for another spot, there's the resale is doing very well in those. There's a lot of people who want to plant and have a nice place, but that's definitely held its value more so than what a $600,000 house is, or even an $800,000 house. Those have come off because there's a lot of supply that's been created on the suburbs of right around Calgary and around the satellite towns. So it's kind of a first time we've seen this, and it's so it is a little bit better time to sell a more expensive house. That's what we did. We pulled the trigger on selling our more expensive place last year, and pretty grateful that we did. But
Is there a particular price range that's the most sales are happening from 600 to 800? What's our pricing in Calgary?
I think it's definitely that the most buyers are in that 600 to 800 range. That's always the highest volume, highest transaction space, but that would probably be it.
Our ex-mayor and her high density ruling, what's that done to our housing market? I know what it's done to my neighborhood, hence me trying to get out.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah, a
effect?
lot of confusion, a lot of pain, a lot of angst. That it was a problem that just didn't need to be there, and from a philosophical view, and it's caused a lot of pain for a lot of people. There's a unit in Varsity Estates. Ray, how many units, like in Varsity Estates, big single family houses, and there's a high density unit plopped right in the middle of that. 6 units on one lot in Varsity Estates.
Crazy.
And now, so I'm hoping this all dissipates again, but it just didn't need to be it was an issue that didn't need to be made. We made a problem just of our own doing, so that's frustrating.
I think the issue was, how about more affordable housing? But I don't think the thought process went into it.
No, there's a lot of other ways. That's a whole other story here.
Yeah, maybe we'll leave that alone.
Need Mona to come up and give us the details.
Another thing, rental income is fully taxable. So when I see someone, and we're working with a gentleman, we've worked with him for about a year now out of Red Deer with some rental properties, and he's a cash guy. So he likes to buy and pay cash, very conservative till he met us. He was all in the bank with he had sold a corporation, and he was in GICs, so he had interest income and rental income, and when he got his tax bill, he called us because he had a heart attack. So the first thing we advised was, if you're going to hold these rental properties, should it be in the corporation? Should it be personal? So we brought in a tax expert to work with Pam. And why don't we leverage? Why don't we put a loan or a mortgage up against those rental properties, which brings down the interest? I'm down to 1 rental. And I'll let you know when that's going on the chopping block. I've had a renter, an ex-assistant from 15 years ago, and she's a fabulous renter. Nothing ever happens there. But I was showing all this income on my tax return, so I just called my bank, put a higher mortgage against it, and tried to bring that income down, fully taxable. I prefer a dividend. It's only 1/3 taxable. So I'd rather make it easy, buy a bank stock. just make it easy. You look at it on your statement, nobody calls you Christmas Eve, the oven's out. Yeah. So Jeff, you'll hang around with your team?
Yeah.
Great. And I want to thank Emma and James. We just are in the process of signing up a brand new client, Johan. He's under a year. 1 year. And we've started him on his first investment, his RESP. So this kid's going to the moon. We'll have him high in nuclear. Yes, there'll be $1 million in there. We've opened a family one, so we're expecting more new clients, just to put the pressure on you. So thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
The last thing I was going to say, I definitely, like I said, I used to be 100% pro rentals. I'm just more in line with diversification and from a personal standpoint, but also, even though I'm all out, it's not that I'm anti-rentals. There's just, you really have to have the right spots, and not all rental properties are equal. Some are, I classify as a poor investment, some are great investments. But I'll leave it at that. I'll just be at the back. You guys let me know if you want any questions or want to chat later.
Thank you, Jeff. So as most of you know, I'm kind of the idea out the door, getting stuff done, and behind me is Mona doing the technical work. So you'll see, and I think we've more and more polarized. I'm more and more, wow, let's do this, and Mona is more and more, yes, but. And here's the process. We have a written process. So Mona's got this great presentation on U.S. property, and you go, doesn't pertain to me? Well, it just might. So take it away, Mona.
Okay. So today, what I want to touch on is just some of the issues and things you need to consider around what is called U.S. real property. We'll talk a little bit more about what that is. But a real property ownership of a home in the U.S. or U.S. situs assets has implications to it, even if you're not an American, even if you don't consider yourself to be an American taxpayer. So I can't go into all the details of that because if I go into detail, we're looking at being here another 2 or 3 hours probably, and it's probably way more than you want to know about the subject. But what I'd like to say is that we have an extremely robust tax and estate planning department as part of Richardson Wealth. They write wonderful education articles, and I did a lot of my research for today there. And these articles have recently been updated due to some changes in the U.S., but after the presentation, you will see on your feedback form, one of the questions is, would you like any of these articles emailed to you? If you give us your email address, we'd be happy to send them on. There's one article that's on things to consider if you're considering purchasing a property in the U.S. And it's about 6 pages long. So there's a lot more to consider than you think. There's a second one that's on U.S. estate tax and how it works. And the third one is on substantial presence, because if any of you are traveling to the U.S. a lot, or you might have friends, you might have family members traveling to the U.S. a lot, you should know the rules, because it was important before, but now it's really important that you understand what visas you need, how you need to register yourself if you're going down there for extended periods. It's really, really important. So let us know on the feedback forms if you'd like any of those articles sent to you. We'd be happy to send them out. It's very easy. We'll just send them out as a PDF document. So, U.S. property. Some of the things that you need to consider when you have a U.S. property, and sometimes there are things that you don't think about ahead of time, but they're really important. So these were 3 of them, what I thought was 3 of the most important things to consider. Is number 1, are you partnering with anyone? Because what we hear all the time is, oh, my brother and I are buying a place down there. It's really important if you decide to do that, that you do a partnership agreement, that you do the legal stuff. It's important that you register the property properly. And also it's important that you go down, if you're down there and you have property down there, you get a will done and you get a local power of attorney done. They will not necessarily accept your Canadian documents to settle an estate. So these, I think, are the three most important things. There's a lot of other things to consider, but I think these are three of the most important things. Because, you know, you do a partnership with a family member and everything's wonderful, but then they split up with their spouse, or there's a death and it's not clear in the will what's supposed to happen with their share of your property. There's a lot of factors that can come into play. So I think it's really important that, that you consider those are the three big things to consider. The next section was, how do you want to use your property? You're going to buy that property in the U.S. You're going to pay. You're going to, to Jeff's point, and I've said the same thing as Thomas for years to clients, is if you're not going down there for 3 or 4 months a year, go out, rent a wonderful house for a month, pay the money, don't buy the property. Because I can guarantee you it's going to be 10 or 20,000 US a year just to maintain the property, even if you pay cash for it, because you've got property taxes, you've got all the maintenance, you've got condo fees, or maintenance fees if it's a home. So think long and hard about that. And if you're going to rent the property, then you've got another whole issue, because you have a non-resident getting rental property in the U.S. So there's tax remittance required on that rental income. There's filing requirements. There's a lot you have to do if you're planning to rent a U.S. property. A lot of that information's in that piece that I told you we had. So if you want to dive deeper on what that looks like and how it works, there's good information there. You have to report that net income to the CRA as well. And if the property's rented more than 50% of the time, you may have to file the T1135 with CRA that you, as a you know, an outside U.S. property. So those are just some of the things to consider. U.S. and Canadian tax are very different. So you need to understand both sides of the equation if you're going to own a property in the U.S. There's a lot of different planning opportunities when you buy a property in the U.S. There's a lot of planning opportunities about how you register it. There used to be a planning opportunity to hide it inside a Canadian corporation partnership. You can't hide it in a Canadian corporation. They changed that in 2004. They figured it out. CRA figured it out. So that doesn't exist anymore. If you have anybody that bought a property a long time ago and says, oh, buy your house and put it in your Canadian corp, doesn't work. But there are sometimes reasons why it should be held instead of the way we commonly hold our property is joint with rights of survivorship with our partner or spouse. Sometimes there's a good tax reason, depending on the size of your estate, for it to be held what we call tenants in common instead of with rights of survivorship. So it's important to just understand the nuances of that and understand the best way to register it. Should it be in a trust, in an inter vivos trust? There's lots of different ways. Again, really good information in the article that I referred to that we can send to you. So the difference between Canada and the US for gifting. In Canada, we can gift to our children, our family. We do have to report the capital gain when we gift and establish a new value. In the US, there's a transfer tax when you gift, and it's expensive. So you can't do the same kind of family gifting transfer as you can in Canada. It's different. So understanding that's really important, especially if the idea is that you're going to buy a property that's going to stay in your family and that you want long-term for your children to be involved with. So do you understand the U.S. and Canadian tax implications when you sell? So having been a person who owned in the U.S. for 30 years, and I did sell my property in Montana, and I had to go through the whole rather expensive rigmarole. That was an extremely expensive tax return to file on this little $200,000 condo. It was over $5,000 US that it cost me. By the time I got all my tax identifier numbers, paid the transfer fees, the accountant, filed with the IRS, filed with Montana. They kept 15% of my money from the sale of the property until I had everything filed and cleared by IRS. So there's lots of factors to consider when you're selling. It's important to get really good advice around it. So if you're going to sell U.S. property, try to get somebody that's worked with Canadians quite a bit, that maybe understands both sides of the picture. But there's usually both federal and state filing requirements, which was what I had in Montana. I had to file in Montana. I had to send 15% to the IRS. But I must say, I filed my tax returns as soon as I could in February of the next year, and I had a refund in 2 weeks. So I was pretty happy. But I did spend a lot of money getting it right. And especially I had put my son was on the property as well. So all three of us had to do Montana tax returns, federal tax return. So just, again, just keep in mind that you need to spend some time understanding all of it. U.S. implication at death. So it's important to understand this, and not just if you have a house in the U.S. It's important to understand this if you own U.S. situs assets. So on the left here, it's a little bit small, I know, for you guys. Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. So it's a little bit small for you to read, so I'm going to read it out for you, what a U.S. situs asset is. So shares of a U.S. corporation, including shares held in Canadian brokerage accounts of any kind. So it doesn't have to be your non-registered account. It can be shares in your RSP, shares in your TFSA, all those, any U.S. direct held shares. It includes U.S. resident mutual funds and ETFs. Many of you own U.S. assets in the investments we have for you, but they're inside Canadian mutual funds. Those are not considered to be U.S. asset if they're in a Canadian mutual fund. It's only if they're in a U.S. cited mutual fund. U.S. real estate, of course. Tangible personal property located in the U.S. So this means if you've got a house down there and you've got a bunch of great art in it, you got jewelry down there, you've got great carpets that you bought, Oriental carpets that are worth a few thousand, that's all counts as a U.S. situs asset. And where this becomes important is figuring out if you have to file a U.S. estate tax return, because it's based not on owning a house down there, it's based on U.S. situs assets. Also, if you happen to have maybe worked in the States for a while and returned to Canada, you might have a U.S. plan like a 401k or an IRA. That's considered a U.S. situs assets. And also, if somebody from the U.S. owes you a debt, and that debt's considered an asset. Okay, so those are the U.S. assets. And the reason that it's important to know this is because if you have more than $60,000 U.S. in U.S. situs assets, you could be subject at death to having to file a U.S. estate tax return. 60,000 U.S. Ouch. Ouch. So as per the next slide here, you have a U.S. estate return has to be filed by the executor within 9 months of death. So if you have any U.S., make sure your executor knows, because the way the tax treaty really works, and under the new legislation that Trump has put in place, the executor, if they don't file that within 9 months, they might lose the preferred tax treatment on it. So basically, under the new one big beautiful bill that was passed, there was a big worry about the size of an estate being subject to estate tax. They thought it was going to go down to like 5.9 million. It has not. Where they've got it at right now is basically if you've got starting in 26, it's 15 million. So your estate has to be worth 15 million or more before any of it is subject to the tax. That doesn't mean it's not subject to filing the estate tax return, but it means it might not be subject to the tax if it's under that. And basically the way they've done it, the legislation, I won't get too detailed, but they do have some good information in the piece that I can send to you, is basically the way they've done it is they basically, with the transfer credits, given Canadian the same levels as US people. So they haven't lowered it to the 5.9 million. This year it's 13 something, and next year it goes to 15 million. So it's just important to know that. It's important your executor knows that. It's important to know if you've got to file. Just because you file a U.S. estate return does not mean you owe any U.S. estate tax. It just means you have to file the return. And the returns, it's interesting when you have to report on an estate valuation in the U.S., there's funny things included that aren't included in Canada. If you have life insurance, it gets added. So if you've got a $5 million life insurance policy, that gets added to the total of what your estate's worth at death. So
It's your Canadian assets and your U.S.
it's
assets.
everything.
So your
It's everything.
Canadian assets come into
Yeah.
play here.
Yeah.
On the 15 million.
Yes, it's everything.
Canada is your total estate.
Yes, it's everything.
Not just your U.S.
Yeah, yeah. So 15 million sounds like a lot, but for some people, it ends up maybe not being a lot. If you've got 5 million in investment, and you've got a house worth several million, and you've got a house in the U.S. worth a few million, and you've got a big life insurance policy, you can be at 50 million pretty easily, yeah. So, so those are just some of the things to think about, to consider. The last thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is substantial presence, because I don't know how many in the room do go down to the States for extended periods. I know a lot less are going than used to go. But the substantial presence test is really important. And the reason is that the IRS, they go by the number of days you're in the country during the tax year, January to December. But the Border Patrol doesn't do that. They go by a rolling calendar. So you got to be careful on that. I've had friends turned away at the border because they went back in December and they said, no, you had too many days on your rolling 12-month calendar. You can't come back yet. So it's important to do the calculation. I have a great information piece. There's also a couple of really good websites where you can track. So if you go back and forth a lot and you're trying to see where am I at for my days, these are some websites you can go to that help you track your days. The other thing is, you may have seen it's been on CTV News, it's been on a number of the news channels, what's been going on in the border with snowbirds returning. So people that are going back down there, and they get to the border, and they say, how long are you staying? And they are say, well, I'm staying for the winter. You have to register now. Canadians have to register. If you have a Nexus card, you don't have to go through all the biometric stuff and the fingerprinting and stuff they've been doing on some people if you have a Nexus card. So if you're a frequent traveler to the U.S., I'm going to recommend you get a Nexus card. I've had one for 10 years. It's incredible. And it's incredible in Canada because when all those guys are lined up for their flight, I'm the third person in line on the Nexus line. I don't have to go through security for an hour. So ask Elise. We flew recently on a business trip, and she was in the line for an hour, and I was through in like 3 minutes. So she's getting her Nexus card. So be aware that now where you can go to register is if you're going down for this more than 6 months. So this might not apply to anybody here, but it might apply to your parents or friends or something that go down. You can go to the USCIS website 7 days before you're going to leave the country. And there's a form called the G325R form. And basically that's your alien registration form. And you can do that ahead of time before you go which can save you a lot of time at the border. So that's kind of a new thing. They never used to fingerprint us Canadians. They actually wanted us to go down there for the winter, but it appears to have changed, and we're not as welcome as we used to be. So just being aware that you need to register and can save you a bunch of time at the border. So that was it for me. Does anybody have any questions in particular? It's a lot of information.
So a couple things, Mona. Just, we deal with so many people and so many situations. I'm thinking about our client on Vancouver Island. So this was a divorce of 46 years, and they had property everywhere. One of it, a house in Maui. Luckily, it was in her name. That was a bit helpful. Oof. And then COVID hit, so that added to the whole divorce. COVID, it just added to the whole thing. She did have a TIN, a tax number, but during the whole trying to file, trying to do everything in the midst of a divorce, her tax number expired. So she had to reapply and get, and of course the IRS is down, everyone's down, so that took time. She got that, and then her passport, her Canadian passport, expired. And I don't have this officially, but I saw what happened, and the new Canadian passports don't have something in them that the IRS recognizes. They changed our passports. So she had to go to a special person that was an agent, and this is about a year ago, and there weren't many people that were qualified as an agent. It was a very narrow field, and there wasn't a need for it before. So we're still waiting for her refund, and it's probably 2.5 years. So there's something, can you expand upon that passport, Mona? Because there's some chip or something.
Yeah, there's some kind of an identifier that
Yep.
you have to give, like for the IRS to get the ITIN renewed. But I know when I had to apply for mine, I just did it through the accountant that did all my US tax returns. She did the application for the ITINs, and then as soon as we got the ITINs in, we were able to file. So, yeah.
A lot of challenge. So you just, when you're doing something, maybe give us a buzz before you get far down the line on this, and we'll help you out there. We've got collective information from 32 years of dealing in this arena and seeing. But who's to think that Canada would change the passport and it wouldn't be acceptable to the US? Who would ever check that one out? But it's not. You have to get it specially verified.
Yeah, it's a verification process that has to be done by someone that IRS recognizes to do the form to apply for the ITIN.
Time, money.
Yeah.
Bad combo. Other questions for Mona on this? Have we scared the bejeebers out of you? So, and when they're calculating your estate, so it's what you have in the U.S., when they're calculating your estate, and I've sat in on 1 million U.S. presentations, Mona was very on point. It's not just what you have in the U.S., it's what you have in Canada, and what they consider a part of your estate is what we don't in Canada. So they're similar, but they're different, aren't they? Who would ever think your insurance policies would be part of your estate calculation for the U.S.? Odd stuff. Questions? So on that note, I think we'll close it down on my ask of you, which is the review form, but I have a bigger ask of you. And last year, well, it started 10 years ago, and we had a client that had substantial capital gains. It was one of my first clients in Ottawa 32 years ago, and woof, big gains. And I said to her, wow, this is, a capital gain is only half taxable, so you get a break. But if we donate that stock in kind to a registered charity, the charity gets the full amount of that position. You miss the entire capital gain. The entire capital gain. And in Alberta, at the top bracket, you get 53% back. So giving stocks, securities, ETFs, mutual funds in kind to the charity of your choice is really effective on a whole bunch of different areas. First of all, there's a study out of Stanford. When you give, and you give with a full heart, it creates these magical endorphins that bathe your brain and your body in this serotonin, dopamine, everything good in life. It's like this wellness thing going on, and it can last for up to 7 days. So 1, it's good for your health. 2, it's good for your tax return. If you've got a massive capital gain, anything in the tech sector that you've held for a while, you have a substantial capital gain. The market's high right now. We're coming up for year end. So 10 years ago, we donated that stock, and it worked really well. Fast forward 10 years. Last year, I announced at Christmas, we did a tally from September to December. We had given out almost $500,000 in charitable. And it went to places like the Meow Foundation. We have a couple of us that are big on that. It went to Children's Cottage. It went to the Mustard Seed. It went to women's shelters. It went to everything good in life. So take a look, see. If you want to bring your tax down, increase your health, give us a shout. We'll find your biggest position. Could be CN Rail, could be CI Alpha Global Innovators. Oh my Lord, that position is just, it could be your nuclear energy that we bought last year. It's just exploded. Give with a full heart, pick your charities, and we have Chris and Thomas working on charities. Now, last year, Peter commented, he said, I'm trying to bring money in, and you're sending it out. But it all comes back, because it's the karma of life, isn't it? So on that note, we still have time. We cut off soon, because it's administration. So let us know. We'll take a look at your largest position. If you're not with us, send us your statement. We'll pick it out right away for you and transfer it over to us. We'll help you. If you're doing charitable and it's the Meow Foundation, I'll come to your house. So thank you very much for your kind attention. We've got food left, so dive in. And thanks so much. We'll be hanging around.